You stand before a massive, ruined castle. The sky bleeds the color of rusted iron. A giant knight clad in heavy armor swings a sword twice your size, and you die. Again. You respawn at the bonfire, grip your controller, and walk right back into the slaughter. 10 years have passed since From Software dropped us into the dying world of Lothric. A whole decade. We are sitting here in 2026, surrounded by virtual reality ecosystems, hyper-realistic graphics, and games that try to procedurally generate endless content. Yet somehow, millions of players are still voluntarily returning to this brutal, unforgiving action role-playing game from 2016. There is a specific magic hidden beneath the frustration and the famous difficulty screen. But to figure out why this journey still commands such massive respect today, we have to look past the heavy nostalgia and see what happens when you strip away 10 years of gaming evolution. Because what you find underneath is actually quite surprising. Looking at the graphics today, the age definitely shows. If you zoom in on the textures of the stone walls or the basic character models, you can easily tell this is a title from 2 console generations ago. We are used to seeing individual pores on a character's face and perfectly ray-traced reflections in every tiny puddle on the ground. This game does not have any of that, but it absolutely does not matter. The art direction carries the entire visual experience on its back. When you walk out of the dark catacombs and get your first look at the shimmering, moonlit city of Irithyll, it still takes your breath away entirely. The developers understood that a beautiful, haunting skybox, incredible architectural scale, and perfect lighting choices will always outlive raw graphical fidelity. The ash falling from the sky, the tattered capes blowing in the wind, and the grotesque enemy designs create an atmosphere that modern titles with 10 times the budget still completely fail to capture.
That visual atmosphere sets the perfect stage for what is arguably the tightest gameplay loop ever created. The combat is a careful, calculated dance. It is not about mashing buttons or executing complex fighting game combos to juggle enemies in the air. It is about patience, observation, and rhythm. You have your health, your stamina, and your healing flasks. Every single swing of your sword costs stamina. Every dodge roll costs stamina. If you panic and empty your stamina bar, you are left completely defenseless, and you will be punished instantly. This forces a level of deliberate decision-making that keeps your heart pounding during every single encounter. In 2026, a lot of action games have shifted toward overwhelming speed and flashy automated animations, where the game practically plays itself to make the player feel like a superhero. Here, every victory is earned with your own 2 hands and your own quick thinking. The controls are incredibly responsive, which is the absolute only reason this punishing difficulty actually works. When you press the dodge button, your character rolls immediately. There is no floaty movement, no delayed input, and no unfair tracking from enemies that magically pivot in midair to hit you. If a massive boss swings a heavy hammer and you get crushed into the dirt, you never blame the controller. You know exactly what you did wrong. You dodged a half second too early, or you got greedy and tried to land 1 extra hit when you should have backed away to heal. This flawless responsiveness creates a loop of learning and improving that is incredibly addictive. You die, you learn the enemy attack pattern, and you try again.
And you will be trying again quite a bit, especially when you face the legendary bosses. These fights are massive spectacles that serve as the ultimate tests of skill, pushing you to your absolute limits. From a frantic, tragic sword fight with twin princes to a desperate duel against a nameless king riding a dragon through the storm, the variety is staggering. They test everything you have learned up to that exact moment. You cannot brute force your way through them. But getting to those bosses is often just as dangerous as the fights themselves. The real genius of the design actually hides in the quiet journey between the safe zones. The world design is a masterclass in tension and release. Unlike the massive empty open worlds that flood the gaming market today, this game features tightly crafted, highly interconnected levels. Every single enemy placement is entirely deliberate. Every trap is designed to catch you off guard if you stop paying attention. You will find yourself exploring a poison swamp, constantly checking your health bar, desperately searching for the next bonfire. The relief you feel when you finally see that glowing sword resting in the fire is unmatched by any other modern gaming experience. You unlock shortcuts that loop back to earlier areas, making the world feel like a real, cohesive place, rather than a series of disconnected video game levels. It rewards exploration beautifully. If you see a ruined tower in the distance, chances are you can go there, and there is probably a unique weapon or a secret boss waiting in the dark. How you choose to tackle those challenges is entirely up to you, thanks to the deep and rewarding role-playing mechanics. The build variety is truly staggering. You can wear massive heavy armor and swing a giant club that flattens enemies into the pavement. You can play as a nimble rogue, dual-wielding daggers and dodging gracefully through attacks. You can stand back and hurl devastating magic spells, pyromancies, or lightning bolts. Every time you level up, you allocate points into specific stats, meaning your character truly becomes your own unique creation. The weapons also feature unique special moves called weapon arts, adding an extra layer of strategy and flair to the combat. Two players can experience the exact same game in completely different ways, which is a huge reason why the community is still so highly active today. You beat the final boss, and you immediately start wondering what it would be like to play through the whole thing again as a completely different class. But while you are busy figuring out your build and conquering the harsh world, a brilliant story is quietly unfolding in the background. If you just play straight through fighting monsters, you might not even know what is actually going on. There are no hour-long cinematic cutscenes to interrupt the gameplay. There is no quirky companion character constantly talking in your ear telling you exactly where to go or what to feel. The narrative is hidden directly in the environment, in the cryptic dialogue of the characters you meet, and in the detailed descriptions of the items you pick up along the way. It treats you like an intelligent adult capable of piecing together a massive puzzle. It is a deeply tragic story about a world that has existed for far too long, a world desperately clinging to life. The first flame that sustains existence is fading, and you are tasked with hunting down the lords who abandoned their duty to link the fire once again. It is a bleak, beautiful narrative about cycles, sacrifice, and the absolute inevitability of endings.
The side characters you meet perfectly reflect this dying, exhausting world. You will encounter proud knights who have lost their purpose, hopeful thieves trying to do the right thing for their friends, and brilliant wizards driven completely mad by their search for forbidden knowledge. Their side quests are incredibly easy to miss. You have to pay close attention to where they are going and what they are doing. Your choices directly impact their fates, and more often than not, their personal stories end in tragedy. You actually grow attached to these outcasts because they are the only friendly faces in a hostile world that constantly wants you dead. When you fail to save one of them, it leaves a genuine emotional impact. It makes the world feel alive, organic, and entirely indifferent to your presence. Enhancing every single moment of this incredible journey is the flawless sound design and musical score. For the most part, your lonely exploration is accompanied by absolute silence. You only hear the clanking of your armor, the cold wind howling through ruined castles, and the heavy, distant footsteps of unseen enemies. This silence builds immense, suffocating tension. But the exact moment you step through a fog gate and challenge a boss, the music explodes. Massive, soaring orchestral tracks featuring tragic choirs elevate the fights into mythic, unforgettable encounters. The soundtrack tells the story of the bosses just as much as their visual design does. It is bombastic and terrifying when you fight a wild beast, yet somber and melancholy when you cross blades with a tragic figure who is simply defending their rotting home. The audio cues are also crucial for your survival. You learn to dodge based entirely on the specific sound of a heavy blade swinging through the empty air. Playing this on modern hardware in 2026 is an absolute dream. Back when it originally launched, there were some noticeable frame rate drops in certain heavy areas, but today it runs at a buttery smooth, locked 60 frames per second without breaking a sweat. The loading times are practically non-existent on current solid-state drives. You die and you are back in the action in 2 seconds flat. This completely removes the frustration of waiting and keeps you fully immersed in the addictive loop. It is amazing how much a stable frame rate and instant loading elevates an already incredible combat system. The game honestly feels better to play right now than it did on the absolute day it was released. Of course, no game is absolutely perfect, even a full decade later. The camera can sometimes be your absolute worst enemy, especially when fighting extremely large monsters in tight, narrow corridors. You might find yourself backed into a corner, completely unable to see what is happening, resulting in a frustrating and cheap death. There are also a couple of boss fights that rely heavily on gimmicks rather than pure skill, which can briefly break the pacing of the otherwise stellar combat mechanics. And if you're looking for a relaxing, casual experience after a long, stressful day at work, the brutal difficulty curve might just be too exhausting. It demands your full, undivided attention and absolutely refuses to compromise its artistic vision for the sake of mainstream accessibility. But that refusal to compromise is exactly why its legacy is so utterly untouchable today. In an era where many modern games hold your hand, cover your screen in glowing objective markers, and ensure you never get lost or frustrated, this game respects you enough to let you fail. It trusts you to figure things out on your own. The emotional rush of finally defeating a boss that has killed you 30 times is a feeling that very few games today can even attempt to replicate. It teaches you genuine resilience. It proves that overcoming real adversity is deeply rewarding. When you finally claim victory, you know you earned it entirely on your own merit, without the game artificially lowering the difficulty to help you out.
Looking back at the massive impact this title has had on the entire gaming industry, it is clear that it was a monumental achievement. It spawned countless imitators, but very few have managed to capture its specific, flawless blend of tight combat, atmospheric world building, and cryptic storytelling. It remains a mandatory experience for anyone who considers themselves a fan of action role-playing games. Even 10 years later, Dark Souls 3 stands tall as a towering, unmatched masterpiece. I am giving it a very solid 4.9 out of 5. It is a dark, challenging, and profoundly beautiful journey that every single gamer needs to experience at least once in their life. If you enjoyed this trip back to Lothric, please drop a like on the video and make sure to subscribe to the channel for more deep dives into the games we love. Share this with a friend who still needs to experience this masterpiece, and let me know down in the comments what your absolute favorite weapon or boss fight was. Thanks for hanging out, and I will catch you in the next one.